Welcome to our session on communications, mobility, and IoT. I am Zev from the portfolio team at OurCrowd. I'd like to invite Josh Cram from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, who are sponsoring this room, to say a few words. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll just be real brief. Typically, you hear about the U.S. Chamber of Commerce when you see our president and CEO, Tom Donahue, meeting with members of Congress, meeting with the President of the United States, talking about what's important to business, right? Taxes, immigration reform, infrastructure. So why are we here in Israel? Why are we here at OurCrowd? Because I can say that our members, and we're the biggest business organization in the world. We represent about 3 million U.S. companies all across the country. Business community cares about Israel and is closely watching what's happening here in the sectors that you're going to hear about today and beyond, in a lot of the areas that are members of portfolio companies of OurCrowd. You've heard that there are over 200 major American multinational companies that have R&D centers in Israel, huge operations here. Intel is one of the largest private sector employees here in Israel total. And so from my perspective, what our work is focusing on the high-level macroeconomic climate so that entrepreneurs, investors can do business. So we look at trade, investment, innovation policy between the two countries, working with both the White House and the Prime Minister's office, amongst other agencies. We work with regulators to make sure that it's easy to do business, going either Israeli companies coming to the U.S. or U.S. companies going to Israel. Oftentimes, there can be challenges in doing business in each other's countries. We want to mitigate that as much as we can, and we want to help connect Israeli companies and Israeli technology to major American companies through our work at the Chamber. And finally, the last thing that we really do want to do is educate the broader U.S. business community about opportunities here in Israel. There are other cities in the United States besides New York City, for those of you that are Israeli in the room, in Silicon Valley. There's lots of places, huge market potential in the United States, and we want to diversify the impact of Israel and Israeli technology on the U.S. economy. So it's great to be here. Enjoy the session, enjoy the rest of the day, and thank you.
I'd like to invite Daniel Rockberger from NSLCom.
Thank you very much. It's nice to have an intimate audience after the 1,000 people before. So my name is Daniel Rockberger. I'm one of the co-founders and chief engineers of NSLCom, one of the portfolio companies of OurCrowd. And Danny Spiritus is sitting right next to me, also one of the founders. I'm looking for the hours. Okay, so we are a satellite communication company. We're developing a unique payload for satellites that will provide vast communications from very small satellites at a low cost. So satellites have a few problems with communications. The larger satellites have big antennas that are very heavy and bulky and usually determine a very large satellite. LEO satellites, which is low Earth orbits, the small satellites, have no room in the satellites for any antennas at all, and therefore the links that they can provide are very, very low bit rate, about 0.5 mega to 5 megabits per second. So our solution, and maybe some of you saw me demonstrate on stage, is a flexible antenna system. It includes an antenna that's flexible, can fold up like a parachute into a very small volume and deploy out of a small satellite in space. And also a flexible subreflector that can do some beam shaping. And this is very unique, and this way we can concentrate the energy of communications to where we want to give our coverage. So the company was founded after a few years of garage in May 2015. We are after 2 rounds of funding. The second one, OurCrowd joined. And Q4 of this year, we are launching our first satellite to space to demonstrate the technology. So our main core team, 2 people from the space world, myself and our CEO, Tamir, who's currently aboard in Singapore, and 2 people from ex-Gilat, ground people. Satellite links always, one part is in space, the other part is on the ground, and that's how we complete ourselves. So there's going to be 4,500 satellites launched in the next few years. Up to date, from Sputnik, there's been about 4,000 launches. So the whole amount of satellites is going to be doubled in the next 5 years. and we want to be part of that. I'm going a bit quick. I want to show you a video. Our customers, there's a few levels. Some of them are in the space world, manufacturers of satellites like Lockheed Martin and Boeing. But some of them are also the operators, those who give you the communication link, like some of the companies you can see here, but also the influencers, because everything that Google, Amazon, and Microsoft are doing, connectivity is something they need, and connectivity in places there's no connectivity. Today, there are about 4 billion people not connected. So we're going to launch our first satellite the end of this year, and next year we'll be poised to start selling the system. This is a few pictures of our unique material and antenna that's going on the satellite. This is our baby, our bird. It's a CubeSat, which will be able to download 1 gigabit per second. So instead of half a megabit, we're talking about 1 gigabit per second, so more than 1,000 times more than any nanosatellite. This is the real thing. We're actually building it, not showing pictures. And of course, your communication link, everything is, every startup outside this room needs communications. If it's IoT, if it's private networks for connected cars, machine to machine, agriculture, everything needs more bandwidth, more communications, and that's something that we can provide. These are a few of our partners, investors, and customers. We have a few small projects, but we're definitely looking for larger customers after we launch our satellite. So this is a movie showing how you would launch a network of satellites, of nanosatellites around the globe. Initially, you would have many satellites on one launch. Here you can see them coming out of their pods, and they're all folded up. When they get to their orbit, they start opening. So after the regular solar panels every satellite has, we open up our communication system, the large deployable antenna. For example, if you want to give a certain area, continent, service, like Africa or South America, you would launch maybe 20 or 30 of these satellites, and in this case cover the equator and give service to all the continents and countries under this area. The beam shaping trick that I told you about, which we'll see now, enable us to change the footprint on ground and concentrate all the bandwidth to the area we want to give service to. And this is something that does not exist in space right now. So that's what we're doing, and hopefully next year I can show you maybe a live demo of a link from our satellite to a ground terminal, and that will be next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Kobe Marenko from Arbe.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Kobe Marenko. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Arbe Robotics. Arbe Robotics is bringing the power of radar into the car. Our company is based on a PhD work of my co-founder, a brilliant mathematician from Weizmann Institute, together with some radar veterans from the Israeli military technologies. And together, we came with a vision of making the world safer by dramatically reducing car accidents with our safety product. So our mission is to prevent cars from doing accidents in real time and to allow them to automatically and autonomously navigate through the environment in real time, even in weather, in a bad weather, in bad lighting conditions, and actually in every every condition out there. So we are enabling the car to see the environment up to 300 meters in real time, to see motorcycles, bikes, human beings, and everything that can cause an accident. So the main problem with optic sensors is when there is a rain, when there is a fog, when the line of sight is not actually clear. And this is where radar, a millimeter wave, radio wave technology comes in. But the main problem of radars that already exist in the car today is that they have a very poor resolution. So imagine yourself driving in a highway and there is something in front of you in around 100 meters, and you want to check if it's a bike, two bikes, or a car. There's no way for current radars to actually separate between them and to detect them as two separate objects. So two bikes will be shown to a current car as just one object. And this is the problem that we are fixing. So it's a full stack sensing system that is based on our millimeter wave radar. We are reaching a physical beam width of 1 degree on the azimuth. This is what allows us to separate between those two motorcycles, even in 100 meters. We will see a video in a minute. Our technology is implemented on a chipset of silicon. It's a 3-chip solution: transmitter chip, receiver chip, and our dedicated processor. This is all done in 22 nanomillimeters silicon. This is the most advanced and the smallest RF silicon product in the world, and the first one. The size of the radar is more or less like the size of your mobile phone today, around 14 by 9 centimeters. It's installed on the grille of the car, and it has a field of view of around 100 degrees, so it can see the entire environment. 4 like this needs in order to cover the entire car. And this is a live demo of our product that already had been ordered by 5 OEMs and fleet managers for trials. So you can see here the streets near our office, central Tel Aviv. The two cars that you see there are here and here. This is what is separating the road. This picture, of course, is sent to the computer of the car, so there's no human being that needs to see it and analyze it. The computer of the car is doing it in real time. And this is what happened when we start taking the video and the radar. So motorcycles, cars on both sides of the roads are detected clearly in real time. Another main advantage of radar is that it actually detects the movement of the body, the Doppler, and don't calculate it from frame by frame. So we are able to actually, in a nanosecond, understand the velocity and to see if someone is trying to get into the road, a human being is trying to get into the road. Another demonstration when there is a pedestrian. So you can see here one pedestrian walking, another one joining, and another one. And we are tracking all of them easily. And then comes what is the most dangerous thing for human beings in Tel Aviv. And we're still able to track them and separate them easily. On top of providing a point cloud out of the radar to the central computer of the car, we are also have a solution for post-processing. With our post-processing product, we are able, actually, just by the radar, to track the object as you saw, to localize the car on the lane, to understand where are the lanes of the road and where is the car and where is the other obstacles. To classify the targets, to know if it's a human being or if it's a motorcycle or if it's a car just by the radar signature. And also, what is more important is to point the other two sensors on the car, the LiDAR and the camera, just to the areas that there is out there something that might put the car into a dangerous situation. Few words about the industry. We are in the industry of the automotive. Everything is moving slow except of the cars. And we believe that the roadmap to full autonomous is still long. And because of that, we build a product that can serve inside the car even today for what is called level 2 and level 3. And we see this as the main market for the next 5 years. Robocar and automotive car, we believe that in the next few years will be mainly in shuttles, in campus, and in constant life. Few words about ourselves. 10 patents, and we raised $13 million in our last round. Thank you.
Thank you, Kobe. I'd like to invite Omer Kelaf from Innoviz.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Omer. First, was really impressed by the previous presentations. Really interesting technologies. So Innoviz is a startup from Israel. We started 2 years ago. We're developing a technology that is called a solid-state LiDAR. So you've heard now about radars, and now you'll hear about LiDARs. And in order to have a fully autonomous car, you actually need a lot of sensors in it. Cameras, LiDARs, radars. You'll need the link budget for a lot of the information is going through. But one of those gaps in the industry is having that high-resolution LiDAR for detection of range and people. So Innoviz is building a solid-state LiDAR, which is very small and very high resolution, and also very low cost. And not only that we provide the LiDAR, we also provide some of the application layers on top of it, like the computer vision, object detection, classification, and SLAM. So you heard about radars, and you know that there are cameras in the car, but there are many situations when you need actually a higher resolution. You need like a 0.1 degree resolution to see, to differentiate between objects that are even 200 meters away, and this is where LiDAR is superior. The short history lesson about Innoviz, so I told you we're only 2 years old company. But we started very fast, and we're just keeping the pace higher and higher. We started early of 2016. We raised about $9 million. We started developing the technology and had our first working prototype around October of that year. That led to our first partnership with Tier 1. That's Magna International. And we showed our LiDAR at CES last year. And when we got back, we started ramping our production line. Our production line is going to be here in Israel, and we're going to start shipping our LiDARs in a couple of months. We also partnered with Delphi, which is Aptiv today, and together with Magna and Aptiv, we are working on different OEM programs. And actually, 2 months ago, we've been nominated by a leading German OEM to go to mass production with our LiDAR for their level 3, 4, and 5. And that's in 4 years from now when they're going to launch their cars. But that's the first time in the market where an OEM is sourcing a solid-state LiDAR for mass production. So although this is a very active space, Innoviz is currently ahead of the curve. What you see on the pictures are 2 products. The first one is on the right. It's actually what we're going to start shipping soon. And that's our first version of the LiDAR. The next one is going to be next year, and it's going to be already an automotive grade. And that's the one that we had that first nomination for. You can see the team on the top right. We're about 120 people and growing. This is a very high-level explanation about the technology. Innoviz is developing basically any component of the design. We're developing a MEMS chip, a detector chip, and an ASIC. All of those are designed by us, and that's actually how we managed to get to the size, to the performance, and also the reliability, and also being able to control the pricing, obviously, because we own most of the unique components. This slide talks about the structure of the company. So when we started, we were mostly developing the enabling technology. That's like the hardware, the optics, signal processing, the MEMS, the detector, etc. And once we got to our first working prototype, we started to build the application layer on top of it, specifically for the program that we've won with that German OEM. It's not only for the not only for the LiDAR, but actually we're also providing the software there. So we are providing the computer vision. Just like Mobileye is doing with a camera, we're doing the computer vision on top of the 3D camera. I'll show you some examples later. Let me show you a video. So what you see here is just maybe an old version, but that's the point cloud, and you can see the bounding boxes running by our algorithms, our deep learning algorithms. So we do classification of pedestrian cars. We see also lane markings, trucks, etc. So this is going to be part of what our LiDAR will provide. Another layer that we provide is SLAM. So what you see here is not a simulation, it's real recording of data. Our LiDAR is mounted on top of a car, and we're just driving around and collecting 3D images. And by using SLAM algorithms, we collect and tie those information in the right way. And it's applied by doing localization and building those high-definition maps. This is required for autonomous driving. That's also part of the software that we provide on top of the LiDAR. Let's go back. Could be I'm over, but let's see. Yeah, that's that's it. That's the team.
Thanks very much, Omil. I'd like to invite Ryan Japetsky from Jump Bikes, formerly Social Bicycles.
Okay. All right. So Jump was the first company to deploy dockless bike share technology. That's a bike with an integrated locking system and GPS tracking. I actually had the idea for this technology all the way back in 2008. At the time, the iPhone had only been out for about a year, and the very first large-scale bike share systems were popping up in cities like Paris. So I had the insight quite early. 2010, we incorporated. By the end of 2012, we had our first pilot installations. And then we scaled up considerably in 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2016. So we actually have deployed over 14,000 bikes across 40 project locations, 25 cities, 6 countries. We're actually now over 550,000 users and have logged 5 million trips. So we hit quite a bit of scale over the last couple of years. Most of that early growth, we went through public procurement processes, we won government contracts, and our business model was selling. That's not right? Okay. Our business model was selling equipment and providing technology services to independent third-party operators, oftentimes governments. The whole landscape of the industry has really changed over the last year and a half as a result of China. And the bike share companies that have been emerging out of China. There's actually now 3 bike share companies in China that have raised over $1 billion. The market leaders, Mobike and Ofo, each deployed about 10 million bikes globally. The mass majority of those in China. So each company deployed, many more times bicycles than the entire bike share industry was previous to their arrival. And it's actually forced a policy change in cities all over the world. Again, previously there was these government contracts and a monopoly, and now it's evolved to a competitive marketplace where you can get a permit and there'll be multiple vendors in a single market. But it's also opened up these best cities in the world, where previously we were going after these second and third tier cities that were available. Now we can enter cities like San Francisco and Washington, D.C. Under these permits. I think the bike share industry is still evolving. It's fairly early. If you think about the system in New York and Paris, we think of that as kind of the landline days or the rotary phone days of the industry. And I think what's happening in China is in many ways kind of like the Nokia brick phone that everybody had in their pocket, had very limited features, but introduced the idea of mobile telephony. I think of our previous product from 2014, 15, and 16 is kind of like the BlackBerry of the industry, where we had a physical keypad and a screen and had a lot of features that were designed for government specification, but not necessarily what brought consumer joy. And I think what the industry is looking for is the product that ties it all together. The Apple product, the iPhone, or the Tesla, that wraps up all of the features into one package and delivers a new customer experience that transforms the market. And that's what we think we have with our current product. First deployed last summer in SF and in DC. Those markets are operational right now. And that's a shared electric dockless bike that you can lock anywhere. That's perfect for trips up to 5 miles, that gives you a boost up the big hills of San Francisco, that lets you go longer distances. We've actually found that our trip length is about 3 miles on average, whereas other bike share systems that are non-electric is about 1 mile. So that means we're covering a different segment of trips. We're covering longer trips. And importantly, it's not just the bicycle, it's actually a charging infrastructure that goes with it that we've designed and developed. This charging infrastructure allows for the efficient and low-cost operations. There's been other people playing around with electric bike share, but they're battery swap dependent, and that's just a model that doesn't scale if you have to touch the bike every day or two. So we feel we've really built a sustainable competitive advantage. One, we have the experience of launching government-backed projects in cities all over the world. 2, we have a head start with the product and the UX. 3, with Jump, we feel like we're building a strong consumer brand, and we've also partnered with world-class brands like Nike in Portland, Oregon, where we have a sponsored system. And last, the scale. We've achieved some level of scale now, but our supply chain is really set up for the next level of scale and ready to produce bikes in the hundreds of thousands. Our focus and target is trips in cities that are less than 5 miles. In New York City alone, there's 600,000 daily trips in a taxi, Uber, and Lyft. 80% are less than 5 miles. And New York City DOT shows that those trips that are between 1 mile and 1.5 miles are much cheaper and much faster on a shared bike. I was just on the main stage a little bit earlier. We made an announcement yesterday that got a lot of press play. We're actually partnering with Uber in the San Francisco market. We've done an integration into the Uber app, so you can actually, without going through our sign-up flow, just start using the bikes from within the Uber app, which is a great strategic partnership and shows how bikes are related to other modes and how even Uber is thinking about the shift for the shorter trips out of Uber Pool and out of regular Uber and into a bike. We've priced it at $2 per 30-minute trip. Right now, we're averaging about 3 trips per bike per day. Just in the last 2 weeks in San Francisco, we're adding about 200 to 300 members per day and doing about 3 trips per bike per day. And that's before we introduce the Uber partnership, which is going live in about 2 weeks. And we think we'll double our trips after that. So even at 3 trips per bike per day, you're talking about $1,800 per bike per year in revenue. The OpEx a little over $500. Our target CapEx at scale is $675, which means a payback in less than 8 months. We're using user incentives to get bikes back to the charging stations and where they're needed. And we have advertising and sponsorship as upside in the model. This is a ridership revenue model, not necessarily a sponsorship model. Zooming back out, we do feel that shared electric bikes and shared electric automated vehicles are the future of urban mobility in the 2020s. Those two things working together in tandem to transform how people move throughout cities. And we see ourselves fitting into that at a time when it's really moving quickly. So in 1900, this image on the left shows a bunch of horse and carriages in one car. Just 13 years later, it's a bunch of cars and one lonely horse. So we're undergoing a similar rapid transformation. The two previous speakers show what's happening with the automation technologies, and we think that electric bikes will fit very well into that future. And we're creating tons of value in terms of user interface and accounts, the software for fleet operations, electric vehicle design and supply chain expertise, and we're going to have experience operations teams in every major city around the world, which makes us extremely valuable to potential acquirers or allows us to introduce fleets of electric vehicles as we grow. So finally, we raised a $10 million Series A round led by Menlo Ventures. Our crowd is now filling out their part of that. Another co-investor was Sinewave, based out of DC. And this investment is to launch the San Francisco and DC fleets, which are on the ground now but are going to expand over the next few months, collect that data, and go back out to market for a growth round later this year. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ryan. I'd like to invite Nir Maor from Soleno.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Nir Maor, VP of Strategy and Marketing in Soleno. First, let me just give you a high-level overview of the company, and then we'll kick it off. Soleno is a provider of smart managed Wi-Fi solutions. We provide a portfolio of software-defined software chips, as well as embedded software, both within the chip as well as in the cloud for self-organizing networks. We are based in Ra'anana, Israel. So far raised just over $100 million and about 117 employees. We have offices in Israel, in the US, operating centers in Europe, in Asia Pacific, etc. And the target audience that we serve are mostly today service providers, home gateways, access point providers, etc., and starting to get more into enterprise and IoT, and I'll say a little bit more about that later. I'm super excited to have this conversation after the previous speakers because I think it speaks to something that is a common understanding for everyone here in this room, which is everything is becoming connected. We've been speaking about satellite communications and radar and LiDAR and sensor fusion, connected cars, connected bikes, and really it's just about everything becoming much more connected. And if you take a look at the numbers today, we are going to be speaking about managed Wi-Fi environments specifically. There are about 9 billion Wi-Fi connected devices in the world today. What's amazing is that about a third of that have been shipped this year. And it just shows the exponential growth that the industry is going through. And now the inflection point that we've been in for the past couple of years, it has been all about, it's no longer just about how fast can you push data through this pipe, and it's more about how do you make sure that all these different devices and virtual networks that need to work together get the quality of service that they deserve, and not all of these devices, not all of these virtual networks deserve the same quality of service. So Wi-Fi has originally been designed as a best effort type of technology. There's this new thing in the 90s called the internet, and there's this thing called email, and we just need to enable it. There are 3 connected devices max at every home. Well, today, we all know that's no longer the case. We have every person in the family has their own laptop, tablet, phone. We have the kids playing Xbox and PlayStation in the room. Everything's just connected. And some of these data hogging devices that are distant from the access point and just hogging up the bandwidth. And we need some way to manage that environment in order to make sure that the devices that need the quality of service get it in time, and the devices that need less of a quality of service or can get that quality of service from a different access point are able to do that. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is Wi-Fi moving from a best effort type of technology to a best practice scheduled and managed quality of service. The way Celeno addresses this problem is by a three-tiered approach, and I'm going to be speaking about each of these three elements. The first on the left is Quicksilver. That is our solution within the silicon. In fact, the product that Celeno makes and sells is this little black chip on this board. It's currently connected to a mini PCIe interface. And what's unique about our offering in the silicon is that we're able to provide a very high quality of service in a very small form factor. And many of the capabilities that we're able to offer within the silicon, our competitors, which are mainly, we're going in the elephant path. Our competitors are Qualcomm and Broadcom, and these big giants are able to deliver some of these features outside of the silicon, which means more space, more cost, etc. So the cost to ROI ratio is very well. So anyway, about that three layer of Celeno's offering, we're now talking about the first layer of Quicksilver, which is the in-silicon capability. We're able to provide smart antenna for extended coverage, meaning that you can send signals all over the place, alongside beam forming to a specific coverage. Daniel talked about it earlier with regards to satellite communications, and you increase coverage and increase capacity through it. We're providing spectral intelligence in a way that optimizes performance, and I don't have to tell all of you, the more devices you connect, the more security risk you see of hacking through these devices. We provide physical layer security within the silicon. The second element of Celeno's offering is the software that's embedded within the driver and within the host application. And like I said earlier, we today have all these very, very different types of devices, services, applications, and what we are able to provide is the bucketing of all these different services and applications into virtual networks, virtualizing those, and providing the quality of service for each bucket, or enabling the company that builds the box, whether it's a router or an access point or a smart home device that aims to control multiple clients. We're able to provide that box builder or service provider with the capability to prioritize which devices get what level of quality of service. And not only that, but within each virtualized networks, we're able to prioritize which services get which level of quality of service. So it's basically just enabling a whole new level of manageability. And like I said, the basis of the competition is no longer how fast can you push data through that pipe where everyone gets the same level of access to it, and it's more about how do you make sure that you streamline the data streams that each and every virtual network gets to optimize the quality of service. Then the third layer is all about how do you manage coverage and capacity within a home environment. Today, you walk into your house, your phone or tablet or whatever it is. That's not for me, right? Okay. Okay, thanks. Today you walk into your home, your phone sticks to the first access point they see, you walk to your room, your phone is still stuck to that access point. If you have 50 people walk into a room and go to another side of the room that has a closer access point, they're still stuck to that first access point. If you have 30 devices closer to one side of the room, there's no load balancing between the different access points. So Celeno's technology is able to address these challenges of a sticky client and load balancing between access points, again, all in order to improve whole home coverage and whole environment coverage for quality of service in Wi-Fi. Today we have a diverse, sticky blue chip customer base. Like I said, we're not really a small startup. We're selling tens of millions of chips worldwide. We have customers all around the world. And today, our main strategic play is diversification. Like I said, our core audience is cable service providers and OEMs to those service providers. We're now starting to diversify into smart homes, transportation, smart city applications, smart factories, and so on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nir. And for our final talk of the day, I'd like to invite Greg Moran, CEO of Zoomcar.
Hi guys, I'm Greg Moran. I reside in Bangalore, India, but I am American by origin. So I've been at it now with Zoomcar for about 4.5 years. We are India's largest and first self-drive mobility platform. We actually operate both cars and cycles on the same platform. We're the only such company in the world who's doing that today. So we started back in 2013 as just initially starting on the car sharing side, and so today we've seen remarkable growth since our inception, and today we're spread out across nearly 30 markets across the country with approximately just over 3,000 cars now on the platform. We have around 70% market share. Our focus is on really providing a hyper-local experience, which is driven by the ability to get a car delivered to your doorstep, as well as being able to pick up a car in your neighborhood, and that gets driven primarily from our marketplace platform, which allows individuals to give us cars when they're not using the car. And so that's something in India which is very much important because cars are not used very often, first and foremost, and they're also very, very expensive. So this is a two-way value proposition that works very nicely. For us today, as we grow along, we're looking at about 4x growth on the car side in the marketplace over the course of this year. And on the cycle side, which is our newer business form, we had started this off about 3 months ago in earnest. We've already seen now a run rate of close to 500,000 transactions a month. And so we're growing quite rapidly on the bicycle side, and we're expecting to grow that many times over here in 2018. Our primary investors are Sequoia, Ford, and also Nokia Growth Partners, in addition to our crowd, of course. So we've raised about $50 million since inception. Collectively, our team has around 100+ years of experience at the management level across operational technology and mobility businesses in India. So as I had alluded to earlier, we have a very strong geographical spread across the country. So we're in approximately 30 markets, and that number is growing also quite rapidly. On the car side, we're in 30, and the cycle side, we're still in just 9 markets as early days. But we have a very diverse array of different vehicles, different cars that we offer, which range everywhere from a small compact to an inside sedan, crossover, SUV, even to luxury cars. So the idea is that you're always going to have the right car for the right use case across the country, and that's really the hallmark where we want to always make sure that we're delivering the stellar user experience. So the marketplace that I referred to earlier for fractional sharing is called Zap. So we offer the ability to either purchase a car, where you can finance a car yourself and take that car and then give it back to us when you're not using it, all via the app. Or you can actually subscribe. So we're actually the first players in India to roll out a subscription-based model. Think of this almost as about like a sort of like an inverted leasing product, which gives you a lot of flexibility and comfort, where you can have an all-in-one payment that's there including your insurance, your taxes, registration charge, etc. And so in India, you can't actually take an individualized lease. So this is a big deal because you save about 80% of your upfront cost, and then your operating cost of the car can get subsidized by about 70% because of this fractional sharing. So we've seen now this. We've already done about 10,000 or so pre-sales of this subscription, where people have expressed an intent to come on board this year. And so that will be the dominant form for us as we grow supply. The other key element for us that's a pillar of our business growth and our overall platform growth, is as well the marketplace as well as the cycles, is really the IoT. And so the IoT, and I'm sure you would have heard a lot about it today across the summit, but what it means for us from a car standpoint and a bicycle standpoint are also, they're sort of two and of the same to an extent. But on the car side, our focus is all about access and ease of access. So, with the marketplace, it's important that you do not have to have a person physically there. So you don't have paperwork, you don't have the physical key exchange. So our platform, our ability through IoT to have remote access through a phone, through a device or hardware device in the car connected to the cloud, allows for this in a very streamlined way. And then also it allows us the ability to remotely disable the engine in the event of any sort of malfeasance. So it gives us that security layer as well. And it gives us the ability to understand in real time the health and wellness of the car in terms of the brakes, clutch, battery, all of the essentials of a car, which we can then communicate and say, okay, well, if this is happening to the car, this is a sort of a bad outcome potentially waiting to happen. Now, what we can do with that is we can communicate that to an individual who's driving to make for a much safer experience, a much better outcome. So that's very, very important. And this same IoT stack that we built for the cars, we're leveraging for our bicycles, through our smart locking system, through the ability to track and monitor in real time and think about inventory management in really a radically different way. So that's something which we're going to continue to be doubling down on and reinvesting upon as we go ahead here. On the cycle side, just a little bit more here, as I alluded to, the growth has been very robust, and we're seeing that ultimately our mission is to touch about 50 cities over the next call it 12 months. So by this time next year we should be in 50 cities, and we're looking at about 500,000 cycles, which we would infuse. So around 500,000 cycles, which would translate. Currently we're doing north of 5 trips per day per cycle. So we would anticipate that would cross 2.5 million to 3 million transactions on a daily basis, from the cycles. And so this is a little on our model from Pedal, where we offer the ability to not only just invest from debt capacity, where individuals can actually invest in cycles. So that sort of crowdfunding, if you will. But we also allow people to invest through an experience platform where we have 100+ partners that allow for discounts and allow for cashbacks, and this is a way also to subsidize and make us much more efficient as it relates to the actual bicycle. So we don't have to invest huge amounts of capital to grow and scale that business. In terms of our transactions per day, I mean, this is what we're looking at right now in terms of where we see it scaling to. So we're looking at growing at north of 3 million transactions over by next year. And on the car side, we're looking to have very, very strong growth across the platform, which will allow us to touch north of $100 million on an annual basis later this year. So, and that just to wrap up, that we're just now in the process of closing on a significant round of approximately $40 million, being led by a large Indian OEM with our crowd, who will also be participating alongside. So, if you have any other questions, you can feel free to reach out. Thank you.